holiness, as patriarch.
Previously, we looked at the first two important concepts that we consider essential to waking up: the inability of corporations, as they are, to produce anything but a series of sins against humanity. Sin in the original meaning of the word error.
That's one of the weaknesses of a partnership, isn't it, Sid?
Well, maybe you better incorporate the store.
Incorporate?
Yes. Incorporating would give you the big advantage of what you want right now: limited liability. You start with a group of people who want to invest their money in a company. Then these people apply for a charter as a corporation. This government issues a charter to that corporation. Now that corporation operates legally as an individual person. It is not a group of people. It is, under the law, a legal person.
Imperial Steel Incorporated has many of the legal rights of a person. It can buy and sell property. It can borrow money. It can sue in court and be sued. It carries on a business. Imperial Steel, along with thousands of other legal persons, is a part of our daily living. It is a member of our society.
Having acquired the legal rights and protections of a person, the question arises: what kind of person is the corporation?
But for all of their errors against humanity, it is a mistake on humanity's part to allow these entities, these newly corporeal entities, to continue their predation on mankind, in utter disregard for the good of the greater populace. Our current system of barter, of the so-called free market, is a system which is over 6,000 years old. There is a growing movement to can it in favor of something less geared to the 1%. We also looked at the very real possibility that the general public has been intentionally distracted from the growing body of evidence which suggests that we are being visited, and that our military feels it in our best interest to keep this information from us.
Now, this photograph was released by the Japanese Space Agency, and you can see the Japanese writing here. This was taken by Apollo 13.
Like sheep, we are being kept happy and content, so that we do not question the motives of our keepers.
And they had an accident on the way. They couldn't land. They damn well barely got back. While they are on the way to the moon, here's the moon, a number of things began happening. Some strange objects were appearing outside the windows of the spacecraft. And guys, they grab their Hasselblad camera and start taking pictures.
Come shearing and or slaughtering time, sheep come trustingly into the hands of their owners.
And see for yourself. These offers will only be available for a short period of time, so all customers wishing to reach up and grab this exciting opportunity should do it now.
Are there extraterrestrials visiting us or even living among us, and are they friendly? We will look at the phenomena of disclosure in greater detail in this and later episodes.
Hawking says that if extraterrestrials visit us, the outcome might be similar to when Columbus landed in America. In other words, it didn't turn out too well for Native Americans.
Given our current understanding of the probable universality of organic life, it certainly does seem like changes in perception of the possibilities, even within academia, are occurring at an increasingly rapid rate. A global conspiracy of a handful of elite dictating the direction of all mankind, relegating the remainder of us to that herd of figurative sheep, is less a matter of conjecture and far better documented in history than is the latter. that our government is withholding secret information that could be of phenomenal importance to mankind remains more a matter of theory, and like many of the ideas involved in waking up to a higher, less visible level of machinations, are often referred to as conspiracy theories.
Scientists operating NASA's Kepler planet-hunting satellite reported Wednesday that they had identified 1,202 possible planets orbiting other stars, potentially tripling the number of known planets in the universe.
Because much of what we will be examining in the Wake Up series can and is labeled as conspiracy theories, a quick discussion of these are in order. Now, the use of the word theory implies a scientific method, while conspiracies, because of their lack of irrefutable evidence, requires an aspect of faith. And where faith and science meet, we'll be there. Now, if we understand that a conspiracy is any, quote, secret plan or agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal or subversive act, end quote, and we also understand that our military necessarily acts behind a vast shield of secrecy, as does multinational corporations, it is not difficult to see where the foundation of conspiracy theories is firmly grounded. These conspiracies are sometimes legal and sometimes not. Often it is not until much later that we find out the truth, like the Iran-Contra affair or the Watergate scandal. While it is true there are some within any group who will take things beyond the pale of reasonable interpretation, the majority of conspiracy theorists are just normal people who believe that many of those military secrets are not always in our best interest, even when legal. Our finest example of this is the Manhattan Project. There was a chance admitted afterwards by the scientists on the team that their math might have been wrong, and that the detonation of the first bomb might have been the end of our world, all gone up in a non-stop nuclear chain reaction. All of this was done without our knowledge or consent. Civilians are, after all, too stupid to decide these things. So it was done in secret, and that the results might have resulted in the destruction of our entire planet makes it a subversive act in spite of the apparent argument that it was necessary to win a war. Changes in the media's representation of ETs in recent years paints a picture far more friendly to the existence of ET races, while at the same time we continue to be programmed by the same media to respond to a wide range of so-called conspiracy theories with the same level of seriousness as we were of little green men only a few decades ago, which of course is absurd since we now know they are gray, not green. This programming, for example, assures that we scoff when we hear wild accusations of treasonous behavior from our elected officials, even at the highest levels, which appeals to our need for stability.
For Bob McIlvaine, that debate is deeply personal.
The suffering gets better, but the pain never goes away.
His son, Bobby, died in the North Tower. He's convinced that the World Trade Center towers were destroyed by explosives planted in the buildings, not by hijacked airplanes.
The film in the background I might have once considered to be a balanced program. Now I could blast so many holes in the skeptics' arguments that to listen to the skeptics only furthers my suspicions that they are full of manure. While there is not enough time in this video to rip it to shreds with any justice, I will instead quickly point out a couple of interesting features of this questionable production called Conspiracy Rising, produced by Dr. Zone. The documentary starts off with a listing of some of the widely held conspiracy theories. Then it examines a 9/11 survivor, and we think they are going there. Let's watch.
He won't rest until he's uncovered the truth.
I try to find out exactly to the second what happened to Bobby, and of course, I'm going to get emotional. But if you've ever lost a child, You want to know how much pain he went through or she went through. You know, it was an instant, 5 seconds.
Bob McIlvaine has put his grief to work, channeling his energy into examining the forensic evidence.
I've had so many first-hand reports that seconds before or immediately upon impact, the explosions in the basements took place. There's no question in my mind the United States was involved. People, I want them to understand this happens all the time. It's Machiavellian politics. And what that means is the ends justify the means. And the nation is always number one.
It looks like being certain even of something which is very terrible and very frightening may be psychologically preferable, at least to many people, than being in doubt, being uncertain. Because if you're uncertain, you're suspended. You don't know what stance to take.
Now, after convincing us that they were going to really look into the matters at hand, they introduce the detractors. And then we have some issues.
They believe anything they read as long as they already agree with it.
Since 2005, Popular Mechanics magazine has been assigning teams of reporters to comb through the 9/11 details with the help of top scientists and experts.
There's evidence it was a missile that hit the Pentagon, but they found the plane in the building. They tested the DNA of the passengers. They identified them. In order to think that debate is meaningful, you have to ignore all this other evidence. And that's what the conspiracy theorists have gotten very good at. It isn't finding evidence, it's ignoring evidence.
Nothing has advanced conspiracy theories like the internet, where anyone can be an expert and post an opinion, whether it's true or not. Critics say those opinions, passed from one hand to the next, can quickly seem like the truth, simply because they're repeated everywhere.
If repetition is the culprit in turning people over to conspiracy theories, what does this say for religion, which is a great deal of repetition? Or for education, repetition? And for almost any other kind of learning, repetition? Some psychologists do compare the belief in UFOs to a modern-day religion, so perhaps it is apt. But still, it's a pretty weak argument for letting those people pictured in the background off the hook just yet.
He says people accept the conspiracy theorists' version of events because research shows human beings are pre-wired to believe what they're being told.
Evolutionary-wise, we're a social primate species, so we do pay attention to what others around us say. You know, we trust our fellow group members, and that when we hear a story, there's probably some value in the story. But we don't live in that world anymore. I heard this story, I saw it on the internet. You know, it's like, it must be true, and that's just our brains tricking us. So the uphill battle for us skeptics is that it's actually in science, it's just the opposite. Don't believe anything you hear until it's proven true.
What he really appears to be saying is to be suspicious of everything until it's accepted by the establishment or established academia. Really? When I went to school, this was called being paranoid. Is this their logical and rational argument? It is skeptics like this one that, while appearing reduced to playing the devil's advocate, do more harm than good when making statements like this. This only furthers our suspicions that he is a disinfo agent. From the point of view of good mental health, it is only reasonable to be suspicious when you come across something that doesn't add up. Then, yes, by all means, use the brains you were given to decide for yourself if something contains merit or is pure bull. But to suggest that we defer our beliefs to the experts smells like something freshly plopped on the pasture to me. Using pop psychology to call liars to thousands of millions of people like those in these videos is not the sign of a higher understanding of the human condition. What do you think?
Make it look like those airplanes were responsible for the destruction of the towers, and then convince the hundreds involved in the plot to keep that secret.
We have 9 years of hard scientific evidence that disproves the government theory about what happened on September 11th. So the question becomes why? Why is it that people have so much trouble hearing this information? From my work, I think we would be remiss not to look at the impact of trauma.
Many people respond to these truths in a very deep way. Some have a visceral reaction like they've been punched in the stomach. To begin to accept the possibility that the government was involved is like opening Pandora's box. If you open the lid and peek in a little bit, it's going to challenge some of your fundamental beliefs about the world.
And I felt my stomach churning. I thought maybe I was going to be sick.
When we hear information that contradicts our worldview, social psychologists call the resulting insecurity cognitive dissonance. On the other hand, we have what scientists, researchers, architects, engineers are now beginning to tell us, which is that there is evidence that shows that the official story cannot be true. So now we've lost our sense of security.
They say, this is the way the world works, and I'm convinced this is the right way the world works. 9/11 doesn't fit into that paradigm. So I don't need to look at the evidence.
Fran, I refuse to believe that many Americans could be that satanically treasonous. Someone would have talked. But these are beliefs. They are not scientific facts.
Not pursuing the truth about 9/11 disrespects the value of the life of the people that died. Thinking that we're above such things, that it could happen in other countries, but it couldn't happen here, that's a lack of humility.
A feature of American history that makes us particularly liable to this pride is this notion that's called exceptionalism, that America is the exceptional nation. And that began from the beginning as this country was formed. The people would say, well, there was so much evil in the European countries, not in America.
From the Patriot Act to indefinite detention and surveillance drones in U.S. skies, our rights and freedoms are being stripped away without any apparent outcry or concern on the part of the masses. And journalism, it seems, has been infiltrated with the same watered-down credibility as has our manufactured goods.
What if we could make elections matter again? What if we could do something about this?
In comparison to understand,
science is also coming to the forefront of extraterrestrial credibility.
All rules go out the window when you go subatomic.
With the disclosure of recent discoveries of more and more Earth-like planets, which only further gears us toward the eventual revelation that there are, in fact, other races of beings out there. How many and their relationship with man remains a matter of conjecture.
You change the behavior of it. The observer actually changes the actual...
If corporations are really in charge, what does that mean for elected officials and even the presidency? We believe that this explains the lack of any real differentiation in presidential behavior for the last 30 or 40 years. President Obama has been a big disappointment for many who voted for him. Although our president is not an emperor who can issue decrees and who cannot do much without the support of Congress, which he has not had, there is still a feeling that very little has actually changed, as we were told it would. But wait, didn't we hear that before? How many times will it take until we realize that the White House is no longer the address of the most powerful man in the world? That address is now on Wall Street, and the Occupy movement is trying to expose this. Yet, most of us go about our daily life with little concern for politics or world affairs. We are not awake to the fact that our leader has been taken over by corporate military powers, probably with threats to his family if he doesn't play ball. Whoever they are that are actually in control, be they Illuminati or just ancient bloodlines of the super elite who consider themselves the real directors of our history, they assure an abundance of secrets. And what happens when a dog sees a cat turn and run? They chase after it. We may not be dogs, but the reflex is the same. Many great men have died in poverty and obscurity because they dreamt of a better world but failed as businessmen. Men like Ulysses Grant and Nikola Tesla, for example. Neither a superior sense of honor nor a creative genius means you have the fortitude to survive in a competitive, Neanderthal-like law of the jungle market system that requires a certain ruthlessness in order to triumph. Even these great men failed to conform to the competitive nature required to do whatever it takes to win, whatever it takes, and that is what someone will do. Because he knows if not him, then someone else, and the rewards for cheating, conning, conniving can be large. Is it any wonder, then, that the capitalist countries used every trick in the book to win the Cold War from the communist Russia? How ironic it is now that we owe billions, nay, trillions of dollars to a communist country? Who the hell's bright idea was that? Oh well, that means that until we pay them back, China, not the U.S., paid for the wars in the Middle East. Huh?
Get ready, go!
Zero-point energy,
this time achieved a breakthrough in anti-gravity knowledge.
Anti-gravity,
Spectacular examples of heavy objects flying through the air without any visible signs of propulsion.
and other alien
He's also made
technology.
amazing discoveries concerning the alteration of compositions of materials by subjecting them to a form of electromagnetic bombardment.
We're looking at something which you know shouldn't be happening.
Would put some of the largest and most powerful corporations, the oil and energy companies, out of business.
Hard metals would turn into soft rubbery objects, proving that any substance could change its form if
Our
the science
government,
involved
military,
was understood.
cooperates with them, no doubt, in exchange for something. While the housing bubble has been touted as the main reason for the recent economic decline, some of us feel that there are other mitigating factors that relate directly to our lack of disclosure.
Do you see government disclosure coming soon at all, Allison? Do you think that's a possibility?
Personally, I think that a lot of the slowdown in worldwide economy is because so many people have seen them and they've tightened their purses up like I did. Didn't want to spend any more money in case something happens. So unless our government admit it and come forward to show what they know, and they'll probably have to lie and say, hey, they're just here sightseeing, don't worry about it. Yeah, but they're going to have to admit something because everybody is probably, there's a rebound effect, the trickle-down effect of people not spending money, like me. I stopped doing all kind of things, because of this. And I almost sold my house and moved away because I didn't want to be around some place where the aliens were going to decide to set up shop and live permanently if they were going to be sneaky and covert, and you don't know what they're up to,
Yeah.
So I think the government should...
Are there conspiracies? Absolutely.
Ramping up, saying,
And as long as there are secrets, curious minds will seek to seek them out. So there will be theories, and until there is official disclosure, the subject of our next segment, they will remain just that. But not all theories are alike, some having more substantive evidence than others. But while we seek to determine for ourselves the likelihood of any given theory, we must never lose sight of the basis for these theories, the very real secrecy, military and civilian, upon which our suspicions are grounded. Those are quite real, and for those of us who find secrets repugnant, will always be a source of intrigue and suspicion. So the answer is that there are some conspiracies, not all, and it is the job of the conspirators to try and muddy the waters, confuse the issues as much as possible, so that our job of discerning what is conspiracy and what is paranoia becomes all the more difficult. On a personal note, we have to say that Despite his small-town brashness, we trust Jesse Ventura completely.
Did you think everyone's against America?
No,
the government's
that's
against
not
America?
True. Always remember, dissension's the greatest form of patriotism. Tom Jefferson said that.
Tom, you were alive then?
No. You're going to insult me
I got to
some
go to
more?
radio. Yeah. All right, Jesse. Take care.
He's leaving. Jesse, I do have to say that I think Brian probably has read every word from the whole 9/11 situation.
And would trust him with our lives, unlike almost any elected official we can think of.
Over time,
Peace
no
out.
doubt, where the government has not told its people every single thing that's gone on. I don't think anyone
They rarely
would be
do.
surprised. But when it comes to 9/11, are you so sure?
No.
Okay.
No, but I ask questions, and what perturbs me is that you don't get answers. Nobody wants to talk about it. This event that changed our entire history of our country, why aren't we allowed to discuss it? Why aren't we allowed to ask questions? The moment you do, you get a reaction like he gave me.